What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast this week. We're your hosts, Wes, Chris, and Marcus. Before we jump into tonight's episode, we want to take just a minute and say thank you to each and every one of you guys that's been following along with us so far. It really does mean a lot to us. We really do appreciate it. If you're checking us out on YouTube, if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment. We want to hear back from you and get some feedback on the show. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can stay up to date when we release new episodes every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. When you're done there, if you don't mind, jump over to one of these platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or YouTube Music, and give us a follow there. It helps the show to grow. It's true podcast platform. You don't get the video, but you do get the audio, and you can also download an episode for later when you have a chance and you don't have time to sit down and just watch us on YouTube. Also, if you don't mind, share the show with friends. Help us get out to the masses. Tune in every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Central. And lastly, if you'd like to be a part of the show or you have a show idea, shoot us an email at amongtheashes@yahoo.com, or you can jump over into our DMs on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, all searchable by Among the Ashes Podcast. So now, with all that being said, let's get into tonight's episode. On tonight's episode, we're hanging out with my buddy Ralph. Ralph's story is one of addiction that has led to redemption. He shares how he came to Christ as a young man, and he decided he wanted to go to Bible school with the intent of becoming a minister. But while he was there, he discovers that not all believers adhere to the same beliefs that Southern Christianers do. He said while he was there, he got to hanging out with some guys, and they decided that they were going to drink a little bit, and he quickly realized that he couldn't balance life and his alcohol consumption, which ultimately landed him in jail and then a stint in rehab at the Foundry Ministries. He said while he was in jail, he was detoxing, he was depressed, and he discovered a true relationship with Jesus in that process. He said he knew that his marriage, his family, and his life was spiraling out of control, and all he could do was allow God to come in and take control, and he said he hasn't looked back since then. After years of struggling with what God's calling was on his life, he's now found it, and he's actively pursuing his sobriety and helping others in their journey, all while pointing them to Christ there at the Foundry Ministries in Birmingham. Listen, if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please reach out or encourage them to reach out. While we fully believe in prayer and we know God can do all things, we also know that some things can't be done alone, and sometimes we need some accountability and help. We're here to listen here at the show. We're here to help you out. You can email us if you need help or direction, or you can reach out to foundryministries.com, or you can give them a call at 205-428-8449. That's foundryministries.com, or give them a call at 205-428-8449, or email us here at the show, amongtheashes@yahoo.com, and we'll get you in contact with somebody. But listen, don't let shame, don't let your past, don't let your mistakes keep you from finding the freedom that God wants for your life. Help's out there, but you got to take the first steps and reach out. So with that being said, go grab you a drink, grab you a snack, sit back and relax and enjoy You Can't Do It Alone with Ralph McCracken.
So I called her and I said, "You going to come get me?" And she said, "No." And for the first time in my life, I called her a B.
Mm-hmm.
And slammed the phone down. And I was mad. I mean, I was mad at her. I was mad at me. I was mad at God.
Sure.
I was mad at everybody because this isn't where I'm supposed to be.
Sure.
And it's not fair that I'm here. And if everybody just leave me alone because I know what I'm doing and ain't nobody going to tell me what to do. And now leading up to this, we had many discussions about me getting some help. Right, I'd lost a job. I had, we were way behind on the house. I mean, just everything that comes with addiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you ain't got money for the house because you got to have it for the alcohol, and so just, and I told her, I said, I can't be gone because we were initially talking about me going to Teen Challenge, and I said, there's no way I can be gone for a year. I can't be gone for a year. Like I was doing any good there now. Right. No job, drunk, like I'm doing any good. I had talked with my pastor and some of the deacons and had a few incidents where they came and helped me out when I was in a bad situation and I had come to the point where I admitted to the pastor, to Joey, I said, I've got a problem, but I'm not ready to do anything about it yet. I mean, yes, I got a problem.
Right.
But I can fix it. I can just quit. I can fix it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Right. Everything was about I'm gonna fix this thing that's wrong with me. So no one was real shocked on the 9th when I got arrested.
Yeah.
Because it was a little bit known amongst certain people around. And then so I'm sitting there in that jail, just mad at everybody for 4 days or for 3 days. So Gardendale is just kind of like it's just a big room with beds around the edges, right? And so there's kind of like this little middle space that you can walk. Man, I bet I walked. All I did all day long was just walk. Yeah. Walk and shake and go to the bathroom. Walk, shake, go to the bathroom because I'm detoxing, man. I'm puking. It's everything.
Yeah.
Feeling horrible, hating everybody, just mad at the world, mad at everything. And I went to bed that third night. I went to bed, and when I woke up that next morning, I said the next morning at like 4 a.m. or something, whatever time they wake you up to throw you a biscuit. I sat up on the side of that little tent, that little bunk thing that I had. And I sat on the side of it and I said, "Okay, God, I hear you." Mm-hmm. And I'm getting chills sitting here. I can tell you, I didn't hear an audible voice, but man, I heard it in my spirit.
It hit you so hard.
And it was the first time I've heard from God in a long time. Mm-hmm. And I'll swear it till the day I meet him, and I'll ask him himself. But I swear what I heard was, "I've been waiting."
Yeah.
Man, I'm sitting on the side of my bed in jail with all these other people who are in there for various reasons, who should be there for various reasons. And then I'm just bawling. Like at that point, man, I felt for the first time in a long time that I felt God. And his response to me was, "I've been here.
Yeah.
I've been waiting.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for you to just go, I need help."
Yeah.
And dude, so from that moment on, my entire attitude changed. I felt forgiven. Mm-hmm. Because with those tears, man, came repentance. Mm-hmm. With that repentance came, God, I'm not making any promises. I'm just, I can't believe I'm here now and I understand what I did.
Yeah.
Forgive me. And so other dudes are starting to ask me if I'm all right. And I'm like, let me tell you my story. Yeah. So here I'm telling them my story. And I'm like, here, let me show you in the Bible where it says this. So I'm like showing dudes in the jail, like doing Bible studies with the guys. So now at this point, I'm like, leave me in here.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I felt, and it was funny. We had 2 deacons. I still don't know how they did it, but they got a meeting with me. Because you just can't walk into jail and meet with people. But somebody knew somebody who said, hey, we know Ralph. He's a good dude. We need to talk to him. They were like, sure, go ahead. And so we ended up in this office room thing. And I told him, I said, I am the freest prisoner there's ever been.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, because I'm as free as I have ever felt in my life. And so from then on, man, I just felt like the weight of the guilt was gone. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they don't tell you about, shame and guilt, is that it's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
And if you don't break it,
right, it
just takes you deeper and deeper and deeper, man. It's an anchor. And so for the first time, for the first time in a really long time, I felt free. And so fast forward a few days, man. The next few days go exactly the same way, man. I get up in the morning, I'm talking with dudes. We go in front of the judge, and of course, I had a public defender, whatever. I was going to plead guilty for disorderly conduct, whatever, or drunken disorderly, and so the lawyer's exact words were, "Well, this is going to be the easiest one you have today, Judge. No priors, no nothing. There's literally nothing in his history. It's a drunken disorderly." He was like, "Okay, $300 fine, go." I mean, I spent 8 days in jail for literally, but I wasn't dumb enough to think I had it whipped. I knew I was free from the guilt and the shame of what I had done, but I knew I still needed help understanding and relearning how to reprioritize some things in my life. And that I wasn't dumb enough to think I could do it on my own, because on my own landed me in jail.
Right.
So maybe I need some. Maybe I do need something, whatever that means.
Well, what you said right there. Let's stop right there just a second. What you did, or on your own. So when I came to y'all's men's group that night, you said something about you can't do it by yourself. I mean, you're off in the corner over there, and you spoke up and you said it doesn't matter what you're going through, you can't do it by yourself. You can't do it alone. And most of us think, well, I'll hide my sin, or I'll keep it from people, and I will deal with it, me and God. And I've made that same statement myself. The problem is the things that we're going through. Most people, if they know you and they know your heart, they may be disappointed. But they're not, it's not the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to disown you and shun you. But the shame and the guilt that we put on ourselves keep us from opening up and sharing something that very well may set somebody else free, because they're struggling too. They have an issue too. And to be at a place where you realize that, hey, I can't do it on my own, even though I feel free. Even though I feel like God's made a huge 180 for me in my life, I can't just take it from here and go. Like, I need to continue and find some deeper help,
Yeah.
And that's a huge step that people need to realize. I'm not saying God can't set you free or that he won't set you free, but that temptation, that nagging in the back of your mind, or the next time something bad happens, you might be successful once or twice, but if you're not digging into God wholly by yourself and just digging, and I don't know how anybody can do that. You're solely dug into him and you can tune everything out. Great. But 99% of people can't do that.
Right.
They're not going to be able to have their hooks in that much. And that's not a credit to the lack of God's power. That's a discredit to the lack of God's power. That's a credit to how we are. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Well, not a credit, but like it shows how weak we are, I guess, that we don't realize that even though, hey, God did it once, he'll continually do it. Mm-hmm. We think that he's not going to again, even though he's never failed us and never left us. So when we hold up in our own and hold on to it for ourselves and say, nope, I can do it. I beat it once, I'll beat it again. Chances are you're not going to.
Right.
You got to find some people. You got to surround yourself with people. And I'm not a believer that thinks that church is going to get you to heaven. But it'll help you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not going to keep you in most cases. Isolating yourself is not the answer.
No.
It's sharing your story. It's interacting with people and being around people that's going to help you move forward. Does that make sense?
We were designed to be in community.
Yeah.
I mean, from the very beginning, Adam and Eve, right? Yeah. I mean, God saw that it was not good for Adam to be alone.
Right.
So he made a helpmate.
Right.
Right? I mean, and all the way through scriptures, you see God orchestrating community amongst his people.
Right.
So you think you're just going to be the Lone Ranger who's gonna, that you're gonna be the one guy in history who can get it done.
And that's the one thing I saw in my 13 years or 14 years of wandering the desert, so to speak, is I've heard God many times say, "I'm waiting on you. This will be over when you're ready for it to be over." And I've heard that like clearly, but yet I stayed in it. I stayed in my pity party. I stayed, nope, I can beat this, God. I don't need your help. I can do this on my own. I love you. I trust you. But you know what? I'm tired of begging you for things and it not happening. I can do this on my own, to eventually saying, God, I can't do this on my own. And God showing me all those times he said, I'm waiting on you. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting on you. This could have been a 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute venture. I'm waiting on you to learn the lesson. Yep. The sooner you learn it, the sooner we'll move forward. But you have to learn that lesson for whatever reason, because God's going to put somebody in your life that you need that lesson for. Does that make sense? Just like you sitting in the jail for 8 days crying your eyes out. How many people did you minister? I'm not saying God sent you to jail, but God used that situation to bring him glory. Does that make sense?
It does.
Now, I mean, maybe God did send you to jail for a reason. Maybe, I'm not saying God made you drink alcohol and made you go to jail to minister to those specific people. But God saw the choices. And he said, well, if that's the choice he's going to make and he's going to land in jail, then I'm going to break him there. That's where I can break him. Does that make sense? And it's hard to say because, God's omnipotent and omniscient and he sees everything. He knows all. He knew it beforehand. I'm not saying that was his plan. I think we interrupt his plan. Could he have used you to minister to somebody in a different way? Absolutely. But our choices dictate God's plan. Does that make sense? Like, he has his plan, but we make choices and we veer from that plan, but his plan's still going to be fulfilled. Does that make sense? You're still going to interact and meet the people you're supposed to meet and do what you're supposed to do one way or another. And instead of seeing it as a curse, we should see it as a blessing. Yeah. And one thing I started doing is, God, thank you for the bad. Because with the bad, I lean on you. It's easy for me to make it through life when things are good. And in all honesty, I have nothing to complain about. Nothing. My wife is a smoke show. I got good-looking kids. They're smart. They're healthy. They give me zero problems. We got a beautiful home. I got a good job. I mean, I'm pretty dang good looking. You know what I mean? Like, I have nothing to complain about. Y'all can laugh,
So he was on such a roll.
Right? I always screw it up.
I was wondering if y'all caught that.
But I have nothing to complain about, but yet, poor pitiful me. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm in my shame because of what I hide. Mm-hmm. And what I know that others don't know. And that's one thing that God is showing me is like, stop holding it in. Because you're not helping anybody. If I've allowed you to go through it, then you can show somebody different. And that's the one thing he showed me. If you're sitting in the middle of the woods and you've made your way out and you hear somebody scream, you can go in and get them and you can bring them back out. Or you can scream until they can hear your name or hear your voice and make it out. Instead of just saying, well, man, it sucks. I've been stuck in the woods and I know God lifted me right out of it. Maybe he'll do the same thing for them. No. You're no longer sympathetic or empathetic. You know what it's like. Mm-hmm. And by knowing, you can make a difference. You can make a change. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But I just, you saying that night, and I told you I wanted to talk to you, and I still do, but knowing that you cannot do it alone. You can't. You're not going to make it by yourself. You can say you and God all day long, and that's fine. Maybe you're stronger than me. Majority of men are not going to. No. Women, whoever, are not going to do it alone. You're never going to take the step by yourself. You got somebody pushing you, then you'll walk that plank. But you're not going to walk it if you think there's any kind of danger or whatever. You might to cut you off, but so they let you out of jail.
Yeah, so I got out of jail on a Friday, and I tell you, my heart was so radically different than the guy that went in the jail. My wife would not let me come home, and I was okay with that. She was like, "You're not coming here," and I was like, "Well,
you think she had given up on you?"
Or I do. Yeah, I really do. I think we were headed obviously down that path of divorce, because all she knew was the guy who went into jail. She didn't know the guy who came out.
Right.
Right. And so she that Friday night she put me up in a hotel room because she wouldn't let me come home. And then a couple of guys from the church came and picked me up Saturday morning and took me to Jimmy Hill Mission. This is back when they still did their homeless thing, right? Where I said, you know what, I'm just going to stay down there for a couple of days until I figure out, because I got to go somewhere to get some help, right? And I knew that. And understand, for 2 weeks, guys from the church had been calling different programs. My wife had been calling programs to find out information about them, because I mean, this was not a world we're used to. I mean, I'm in that world now, but I wasn't then. I had no idea. And so went down. They took me and dropped me off at Jimmy Hill, and one of it was a couple of deacons, and he says, Ralph, I just don't think I can just drop you off here. Like, you're just a homeless guy. Like, I don't think I can do that. I said, well, you're going to, because I mean, at that point, I had no pride. I had no. I mean, I understood the position I had put myself in, and I was willing to take responsibility for that. And so. Still had my cell phone. They dropped me off at the Jimmy Hill Mission. Went in and said, "Hey, what do you do? I don't even know what you do to get a night's sleep around here." Yeah. I mean, and this was they took me to lunch, so it was probably 2:00. And they said, well, there's a couple options. You can come back tonight at 6 if you're just looking for an overnight stay. We have a recovery program. If you need to go into a recovery program where it's an in-house, you stay here and go through our year-long recovery program. And I was like, well, that's what I need. So sign me up for that. They said, well, we can't sign you up till Monday. So you can stay Saturday night, Sunday night, and then Monday morning when everybody gets kicked out of Jimmy Hill Mission at like 6 in the morning. They said, when you get kicked out, just come and register for the program and we'll let you in. And I was like, perfect. Like, I mean, this is the answer. I had heard about another place called the Foundry, that I was that's what we were going to try and do, was get in touch with the Foundry on Monday. Again, because we'd been calling them and couldn't get anybody on the phone. And so that Saturday night, and this is a story probably half a dozen people know. But now we're going to add 100.
Now you're going to add half a dozen to it.
So that Saturday night, man, we get there. You have to check everything in. Like, you're not allowed to have anything on you, cell phones, nothing. You have to check all your stuff in. And then you can go in and get a shower, and then lay cot, whatever. But part of that deal is you get supper, and then you have to go to a chapel service, and then you can go to bed. So we walk in, and I mean, I had a ball cap on, right? No, I mean, and I walked into the lunch the cafeteria place, and dude screams at me from across the room, "Hey, you, get that hat off!" And it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, there was no sign on the door that said no hats. How does anybody know? And if you don't know me, why are you screaming at me from across the room? Right. And so I take my hat off, and so I was like, well, that's kind of weird. So then I go to the chapel service. And again, man, I'm from this world of religion, and so I'm sitting there in the chapel service, man, and we're singing. And of course, I'm free now, brother. I'm just like hands raised. Like, I mean, I feel as good as I have felt in years inside. And the guys in the program are up there singing. Man, I'm tearing up. I'm like, man, this is going to be me one day. This is going to be me in a couple, however long it takes me to get my head right, get my heart right. That's going to be me. And I'm tearing up and everything else. So singing's done. The guy gets up there and starts preaching, and all chaos breaks out in the place. Like, people are talking to each other. Like, dude's up there preaching his heart out, and I'm like trying to listen to him because I'm from church. That's what you do, right? I think I might be the only one from church in that place, right? Because everybody else thought we were at a ball game or something. Right. And one dude was like turned around so I'm looking straight at the preacher, And the dude in front of me is turned around in the pew, talking to the people behind him in the pew behind him, and I'm like, what is going on around here? Like, this is chaos. And for the second time, I heard God. And it was simple. It was 2 words. I heard, "Get out." And I was like, "Huh?" He said, "Get out." It shook me, dude. Like I started, physically started shaking. That dude could not get done talking fast enough for me, because as soon as he said amen, I bolted out that door, went around the corner. I said, "I need my stuff." And it was 26, 25 degrees outside. I mean, it was cold. It was January. And I said, I need my stuff. I'm leaving." "Well, are you sure? I mean, it's really cold out there. Are you sure?" And I said, I gotta go. And I'm shaking.
Yeah.
And it's never happened to me before. I mean, I'm Southern Baptist, for crying out loud. Here I am. God's talking to me.
Right.
What's going on? And so I get my stuff, which was like a backpack and my phone. I mean, it wasn't much. And I'm out the door at Jimmy Hill Mission. And I have no idea where I'm going at this point. I'm like, but I'm not staying here.
Yeah.
Because I heard, "Get out." So I leave and I start walking towards 65. I mean, that's like dozens of blocks. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I called Michelle, my wife. And I said, "You're not going to believe this, but God told me to get out of there." Because I'd already called and told her, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. And then I'm getting in the program." And she was like, "Okay, whatever." All right. And so now here I am calling her, telling her I'm not going to do the program. That's what she heard, right? She heard, she did not hear, God spoke to me and told me to get out, but I don't really know what that means. What she heard was, you're quitting.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, so she agreed to let me come home, but her and the kids left and went to her parents' house. She said, "I'm not going to be here with you." And I said, I don't care. I said, but I don't know what's going to happen. And I was as sincere as I could possibly be. Like, she don't know what's happened to Ralph yet. She just knows the guy that went to jail. That's who she's been around lately. And so I stayed at home that Saturday night and that Sunday night. Monday morning, she called the Foundry, and I called the Foundry. And I didn't know she was calling. She didn't know I was calling. But we both called at the same time, talking to 2 different people at the Foundry. And they both said, "Yeah, we have space. If you can get down here today by 11, we can admit him today. If not, it'll have to be tomorrow." And so I said, "Okay, it'll probably be tomorrow, because I mean I can't I can't get down there."
Right.
And so on that Tuesday morning is when, January the 19th, is when I went into the Foundry. Ready to change. I went to the Foundry not to get clean, because or not to get sober, because I feel like I was. I went there to learn how to rearrange my life in a way that I could live out the rest of my life.
Right.
And it was pretty funny. On the way to the Foundry that morning, we had to stop by the bank to draw out money for the entry fee. And as I'm sitting in the car, while she goes in the bank, sitting in the car, Micah Andrews, our CEO at the Foundry, is Rick and Bubba's guest that day. And I was like, well, that's where I'm going. Like, I mean, okay, so I'm listening to the guy, and I tell you, a month later, it took a month, and Michelle said, "I'm sorry, I didn't believe you when you called me that night leaving Jimmy Hale." She said, I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't believe you. But I'm sitting here looking at you today, and you're not the same guy that went into the Foundry or that went into jail. And you know, that rocked me a little bit.
Well, I think that, in my opinion, that's how God works. Like, you know, whenever I gave my life to Jesus at 18, I had a guy come up to me at work and he said, you know, have you been sick? No. You sure? Yeah. I got saved. That's it. I think they can see the transformation and the change, you know, and obviously that's something that she saw, not only through your willingness of, hey, I want to be in a program. I want to get my life straight. I'm telling you this, but there's also something that the Holy Spirit shows and confirms to her that, hey, he is changing.
Yeah.
He is becoming something different, you know?
Yeah. It was, so I went from teetotaler, no alcohol, to the Foundry in less than 5 years.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
I didn't have a big long history. Most of what most of my life, she's known me to be a good husband, a good father, a provider, all the things that she thought she was getting when she married me.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a way to explain how I wound up at the Foundry other than God wanted Ralph at the Foundry.
Yeah.
I don't have a way, right? Because I'm telling you, I would have kicked Jimmy Hale's program in the butt like I did at the Foundry. Because I soared through the Foundry. I did I bet I read 100 books. I was doing every class. I was ready for life change. You know, so just like I was when I got saved, I was ready for life change. Here I am again, repentant, feeling almost newly saved.
Yeah.
Right? Ready for life change and ready for everything that meant. But why make me leave Jimmy Hale?
Yeah.
Why not anywhere else? Why not of the, you know, the phone calls we made to Teen Challenge, the phone calls we made here, we made to all these different places, and no one ever answered, and we couldn't get an answer, and then suddenly on that Monday at the exact same time, her and I make phone calls, they picked the phone up.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a divine plan for you to be there.
Yeah, and so there's no way I can explain me being at the Foundry other than in God's sovereignty, He sent me there.
Sure.
Now, He used my sin to do it.
Sure.
Right? But you're not going to convince me that I have spent 35 years of my life trying to figure out what God wants me to do. He's called me to something, and you're never going to convince me that all of that wasn't getting me ready to go to the Foundry.
Yeah.
Because I am at a place now that I believe with everything in me that I'm right where God wants me to be, ministering to the men and the women that God wants me to minister to.
Sure.
I can't explain it any other way.
So where are you now? What do you do now?
So when I graduated from the Foundry, I stayed on and was a truck driver, picking up donations. Then I moved to the warehouse manager, then the DC manager, and now I'm the director of enterprises. So I'm over both of our thrift stores, one in Coleman, one in Pelham. So I manage somewhere around 30 employees and 120 or so program participants.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like, and I was joking with our CEO. I said, now listen, there's a price that someone could pay and Ralph would leave. There's a number.
Sure.
It's a big number, but there is a number that Ralph would go somewhere else. But honestly, I'm not going anywhere.
Sure.
Because when you back up and see the whole story, you go, yeah, you're right where God.
Yeah, where He wants you.
God planted you here, whether you like it or not. Because I would have never thought you're called to ministry, right? You're gifted in teaching and preaching, but go do it with all the drunks.
Yeah.
Go do it with the guy, go do it with the drug addicts, right?
You got something through your failure.
But now that I'm on this side of it, it's not go down there and minister to the drunks and the drug addicts. Yeah. It's go down there and minister to those who've lost their way. Yeah. Just like you did.
Yeah.
You're no better. You're no worse. But I can't say that was my opinion before.
Sure.
It took me getting where I was to really open my eyes to see people in differently than what I did. So
if you think about every man that God used throughout the Bible, women too, they all had a period of their life where they were conflicted, confused, wandering, not knowing, but they were always right in that same area, that same realm. You know what I mean? Joseph didn't understand why he was sold into slavery. He didn't understand why he was in prison. He didn't understand being in prison the second time. But in the end of it, what does he do? Not only does he save all of everybody, but he gets to save his father and his brothers as well. Same with Daniel, same with Moses, same,
big difference between them and me, though, was God put them there. I felt like I did it.
Maybe right? So, but
I felt like, because I'd even gotten to the point where I was like, there's no way. I thought ministry for me was done.
Yeah.
Because there's no way God can use me. There's no way God, I have failed so much that there's just no way that God could possibly take me and do something amazing. And man, I couldn't have been more wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the devil wants to do through your guilt and shame.
Yeah.
It's to shame you into thinking that God hasn't changed you, or that he can't still use you, or doesn't still have a purpose for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how it comes full circle. And again, would you have ever heard God if he had said, "Hey, I want you to go to the Foundry and work"?
No. Mm-mm.
Could you have ever gotten that job?
No.
And again, I'm not one to say that that God. Well, I do think God will send us through the gates of hell sometimes. I do think that.
Yeah. I think
because he knows we're strong enough to come through it.
He allowed my decision to send me down a pathway so that he can put me where he wants me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm sure he and I would have much preferred that I not did what I did.
Sure.
But he didn't waste it.
Yeah. Well, can you see yourself doing anything else though? Mm-hmm. And you can't. You know what I'm saying? And that's the beauty of it is in our mess and in our mistakes, he still finds a way to use it.
Yeah.
It may not be the perfect plan that he had for us, and we screwed it up, but he makes it perfect.
Right.
He makes that plan perfect, in spite of what we do. So.
And so connecting kind of some dots to my story, and I know we're here to talk about men's discipleship and men's groups and how those things. I'm going to be honest with you. When I was going through all that, there were things behind the scenes I never saw.
Mm-hmm.
That were going on with some of our deacons and some of the men in our church that were that were helping in ways that I didn't know were happening, but they were still doing it, right? They weren't waiting for me to get clean or to get sober to help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were helping me when I was as dirty as I ever was.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of when men are willing, right, to give of themselves, right, and with no expectation of return, right. Mm-hmm. That's a contract. That's not service. That's
right.
If I expect something back from you, then that's payment. But it was really beautiful once I could sober up and see all of the dots and see all of the things that were happening in the background that I didn't even know were happening. Man, it was such a inspiration to me to think men were willing to do that for me, right? I've got to be willing to do that for the next guy.
Yeah. And that's our whole goal with this, is that we show men our big thing, and I know this is y'all's too when y'all meet over at Cooners. Whatever's said here stays here.
Yeah.
You know, it stays right here. I don't care. Short of you causing harm to yourself or someone else, it stays right here. And we're going to help you get through it. I don't care if that's the thing we focus on for the next year. We come in here week in and week out and we only talk about your issue. We're going to help you through it. You know, now that's not to say we're not going to hold you accountable. That's not to say we're not going to tell you pull your bootstraps up, suck it up. At some point, you've got to be different. You've got to make a change. You know, but we're here.
Right.
We're here, and it's a lot easier for me as a shepherd to go out and slay 1,000 wolves if I ain't got to worry about what's coming behind me, because I know you're there. I know Chris is there. I know Marcus is there. You know, it makes it a whole lot easier doing that when you're not having to fight that battle by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's this. When most men think about a men's group that is functioning the way that it should, right? That means men are caring about each other. I mean, it's almost like Bigfoot, right? There's the rumor is out there, but no one's ever seen the picture of what it really looks like, right? And it's just not true. That's a myth, right? If we're willing to be vulnerable, to say, hey, I don't have it all together, and you're willing to be vulnerable, and you're willing to be vulnerable, right? We can get somewhere with that.
That's right.
Come on.
Right, and it doesn't mean I'm in here crying my eyes out every time we're telling you every little problem I got. We're men. I mean,
sometimes we just need to deal with it ourselves.
Let's not get crazy. Right. But that doesn't mean I have to carry the weight of everything that I'm going through on my own.
Right.
You know, and that's the beauty of what it means when men can come together. It's not about crying on each other's shoulder all the time. Right? Sometimes it's just about picking up my phone the other day when I couldn't get my generator started.
Yeah.
Guys, I got a question.
Yeah.
Who here is the small engines guy?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, to have that ability to do that, right? Most men don't have that option.
Right.
Right? And you can't, unless you're willing to do the hard work, that's not available.
Yeah.
You just can't randomly pick up your phone and call people and expect them to help you. But you know what? I had like 9 dudes responding to my question, telling me, hey, try this, try this, try this. I had 2 or 3 call me. I had a guy FaceTime me. And it's simply because we're willing, we've put that effort into being vulnerable to each other, that I just think if I picked that phone up right now and I called every one of them, they would be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to build that community. I told Marcus going into this, I said, High Point really has it pretty dialed. I don't know how many small groups as far as men groups that there are. I'm a part of one. I've been to y'all's. I know Jason Cannon has one. And then is his name Max?
Max, yeah.
I mean, the things I hear,
there's like 6 or 7 groups of men. I know there's a little cross pollination in some of those groups, right? But there's like 6 or 7 groups of men that are meeting together for the sole purpose of meeting together. There's no other agenda to that, and when
we all come together at men's breakfast or what, we're all on the same page. It's really uncanny. Maybe the leaders get together and say, hey, this is where we're going, let's steer them there. But I don't think that's the case. I think that is just God's purpose and what he's trying to do in this generation. Joey said a few weeks back, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, he spoke this morning, Romans 6:11, the quickening. There is something going on in people in general, but amongst men right now, that
and if you want to see the church change, see the
men
change,
and that's our goal is to get it to a point to where we've sat back for years and allowed the women to do it. Well, we've made the women do everything, and they've done a phenomenal job. But we should be the ones stepping up, doing the hard lifting and the hard work, and then saying, hey, if y'all want to do something, you can. If not, y'all go relax. because that is what we're called to do. Mm-hmm. We're called to work the ground. We're called to bring forth the seed, and instead of sitting and taking a back seat and saying, well, I'm going to come because my kid's in the Easter play or the Christmas play, or I'm going to go to a special thing. No, we're there. We're more than just cutting grass when it's needed.
Right.
We are doing we're the hands and feet of the church. And again, I'm not taking away from the women because they do a phenomenal job, but instead of forcing them to be the hands and feet of Christ, let them want to be the hands and feet of Christ. Mm-hmm. We're the ones that have to do it.
Right.
Because it's ultimately we're gonna be responsible.
Well, this is the way I've seen that lately is the church, our group and our age group now, the church is ours to run. It's our generation of church to run. Our elders, our seniors have put in their time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We've got to put in the work at the church, and we've got to have the young generation coming up prepared.
Yeah.
Seeing what we're doing and being prepared to step in that role when it's their time.
You're right.
Yeah. And they're not.
No,
they're not
we
prepared, right?
As a church to do that.
Yeah, well, you think about it, right? I mean, we have put them in a position for everyone who's 25 and under. It may even be a higher number than that, right? We've put them in a position where they're never around men. Mm-hmm. And when they are, it's always at a ball game or something, right? Yeah, but it's never just around men being men, doing men stuff. Like was it Tim Allen? Right? Yeah. I mean, you just don't see that anymore, right? So we as men have left our families, right? Or siring kids outside of wedlock, right? And not being responsible for them, right? So then they're living with multi-generational females in a house, right? Mm-hmm. Mom and grandma.
Yep.
They go to a school where there's nothing but women except for the principal, right? And, so then they go to a church where there's nothing but women teaching all the way from the nursery all the way up until you kind of get into the youth group. You'll start seeing some men involved there, right? They're never around men to learn what it means to be a man, and then we expect them to know how to be a man, and they don't know how.
And look, coming from somebody who didn't have a dad, I was raised by my mother. I had some great uncles. I had my grandfather. His dad was a huge influence in my life. I had some great men in my life to show me some things, but I can't tell my son how to break down a big block Chevy. I can't, not that defines you being a man, but I can't do that. You know what I mean? Or a Ford in Marcus's case, because he's a Ford guy. Like I can't do that.
Right.
But there are things that I can do. Mm-hmm. And where I fall short, I can call Marcus and say, hey, I need to do this. Can you and Kyle come over and help me and Keegan do this? And that's where it comes in. My mother did a fantastic job raising me. By all rights, I should be strung out on dope, in the streets, or possibly even not even here, But she instilled Jesus in me. She instilled doing the right thing inside of me. Thankfully, I was pissed off enough at my dad for leaving me that I said, I'm going to be a good father one day. But I get the desire and the heaviness of being a dad and being a husband to where it's, man, I get why my dad left. You know what I mean? Like I understand it. The pressure, I get it. Yeah. But I don't get it. Like, no, suck it up and be responsible. Right. Do what you signed up for. But you're exactly right. And again, I'm not knocking these mothers and grandmothers and these generations of women that are raising their sons. They're doing the best they can do.
Yeah.
But we need to step up and see where that's falling short.
They were never designed to do
it.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So how do we as men in the church, right? Because we can't change the world, right? All we can change
our world
is just a little bitty piece that we're in.
Right.
Right. I mean that's what we have access to, right? Yeah. And if we're all doing that, right, then the world gets changed, right? But we can focus on what's right in front of us. So how do we as the church, understanding the culture that we're in, understanding all of the things that we're struggling with, right? We as men are going to have to step into roles that we've not been willing to step into.
Yeah.
But we won't.
Well, and that's
Right.
that's
We're
the
all
whole
in
goal.
agreement. We should.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
And hopefully that's the goal and what we're trying to do, and I believe what y'all are trying to do in y'all small group, but we have to be willing to do that. I know y'all's is open, ours is too. Hey, it doesn't matter how old you are. My 14-year-old was in there the other day.
Yeah.
It's like, look, come on, because where I fall short as your father, somebody else here may can step up. And it's not that you're trying to be their dad or you're trying to take their dad's place. You're just trying to help mold them and shape them into something. And it's time to stop talking and start doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate that this phrase is going to make us all think about one person, because it really shouldn't. But it does take a village.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes all, and it always has.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not.
And again, it's
new.
by design.
Yeah, it's new that we're trying to do this as solo artists.
Yeah.
For the history of the world, we've done this in community with families around us. It's this new world that we live
the last
in where
25, 30 years.
where everything is it's that individualized America where I'm only responsible for me and you're responsible for you and you're responsible for you, and let's not get any of that intertwined with each other. Right? And so we're going to have to, as men in the church, take on roles that we've been unwilling to in the past, if we want to reach this generation to teach them what it means to be a man.
Right.
It doesn't just mean teach them how to hunt.
Right.
Nope.
It doesn't just mean teach them how to rebuild a Chevy or a Ford, right? But it, I mean, if you guys, and I highly recommend any man that's listening to this who has not watched The Forge, the movie.
We've been talking about that.
I mean, it's simple. I mean, how many kids do you shake their hand and they don't even know how to shake your hand?
Yeah.
Like my job at the Foundry primarily is hiring, right? That's one of the things I do is I hire people all the time. And I get young men who come in who are looking for a job. They don't know how to shake a hand.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not just about teaching them the big things, right? But what do we need to change in what we're teaching?
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to impact our young boys who don't have that opportunity to learn it.
Right. That's one thing my father-in-law, and I'm so thankful for him. It's my wife's stepdad. They've only been married about 10 years, but he has taken he's got 2 daughters, but he's really taken an interest in my sons, in the fact of when you shake a man's hand, you shake it firmly and you look him in the eye, you stand up. You don't sit down and shake their hand. You stand up and shake their hand. And that sounds trivial and stupid, but no, it's just part of what we do. And don't be weak about it.
Right.
Don't show weakness.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be weak. It's okay to have weak points in your life. But again, it goes back to knowing when to hold and when to fold.
Yeah.
Well,
when you take your girlfriend to the movies and you're walking down the sidewalk, which side of the sidewalk do you walk on?
I'm on the outside.
Right?
She's on the inside. I told Cullen the other night, we jumped in the car and his little girlfriend was with us and he was sitting in the middle. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, this is the most uncomfortable seat." I said, "It's not the safest seat though, is it? You sit on the outside, put her in the middle." Well, I didn't think about that. I get it. That's just dad being dad.
That's what we're here to teach you.
Open the door for her. When it's just you and her, your head's on a swivel. It's one thing his dad always taught me was when you're in somewhere and you find the exits, you know how to get out, and you watch the door. I
do that at church.
Yeah, me too.
That's why I won't sit right in front of the door. I sit off to the side, so that way if somebody comes in that door, somebody comes in. That's just. But we've got to ingrain that into young boys and young men who don't have somebody there who's doing that for them. So that's why I'm really excited. Our group is starting that process of we've been meeting together now for well over a year. It's been beautiful to build that relationship with each other, and now we're at a point to where I go, okay, how do I reach out and grab the next guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now that may lead sometime in the next 6 months to where we have to take this group and we meet in 2 different places.
That's key right there.
Right, because we can't have 30 dudes in here and still have the relationship, right? So it may mean that we kind of have to to do this, but we're growing by multiplication.
And that's discipleship.
Yeah.
Discipleship is not keeping it all to us. It's sending it out. It's let me come in and teach you, and now you go do it. You know, it's multiplication. It's replication. It's doing. It's not just and the church is horrible at that part of discipleship, because we want everybody in our church. We want to grow our church. More people means more salvation. It means more tithes. It means more this, more this, more this, more this. But you're not going to bring that many people in as you can reach in your daily, everyday life. You know what I mean? So my philosophy is, I don't care if you come to my church or not. I'm going to tell you about Jesus.
Right.
And then you can go to church. If you want to come to church with me, great. But if you don't, okay, go somewhere, you know.
Well, I mean, there comes a point where we have to be intentional about doing it.
Yeah.
Right. To say, okay, if we see this gap, how do we intentionally fill that gap?
Right.
You know, just like as an example in my life, guys saw a gap in my life and said, okay, we've got to intentionally fill that gap, right? With the hope and expectation that he's going to recognize his sin, he's going to repent, he's going to change, and right. I mean, and so we've got to do that. Right, that's the beauty of the Forge. I know you said you guys have been talking about it. He didn't wait for the young man to get cleaned up and get everything right before he started discipling him. He discipled him with his hat backwards, busting a sag, to quote Cooner. Right. He did it when it was the least likely he would probably do it.
Right.
And so are we willing to do that? Are we willing to step into these places and say, hey, I'm going to be here?
Right.
Right. Now, listen, that doesn't mean that everybody's just going to run up to you and love you from the get-go, but it's you're there week after week after week after week.
Consistency.
And just see what happens. Those boys in that children's ministry and youth group gravitate to men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they're not getting it anywhere else.
Right. Right.
And so when we're there and we're consistent, doesn't mean we have to be the cool guy. We don't have to be the fun guy. We don't have to be the joke guy, whatever, right? But by being there, they go, okay, that guy is here all the time. I can trust him. Yep. And all of a sudden, we begin to have opportunities to change the next generation of these young men. Now, I can tell you, one of the things that I think, and it might just be me, but I'm seeing guys Isaiah's age, my son, right, 23, 24, 25, in that age group, they're all getting married now, right? They're all getting married. They're all having kids, right? But what I'm not seeing in that age group is a bunch of divorce.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they grew up in households to where that was the norm. And realized how much it sucked.
Yeah, I don't want
and so I'm really hoping that we're seeing a change. And now I could be wrong, right? I mean, I could be. It just could be. I just don't know enough people.
I don't.
And what I've shared with Wesley about all this too is like, I believe God set aside this right here for men's ministry and mentorship and discipleship to end generational curses of young men and boys that haven't had a father, that hasn't had a leader in their homes, that they see that their cousin sees that their brother sees that you know, some little Johnny from across the street sees that he don't have a father, he don't have an uncle or a grandfather or somebody that's there for him, that this ends it right here, and they see that God has a purpose for their life and has a purpose for their home, for that not to happen anymore. I'm going to be there for my kids. I'm going to be there for my mom. I'm going to be there for my wife. And I really believe that's why God has started this movement in men, just like with the Forge. The Forge is confirmation to me for what God has put in place. But just as far as young men, I feel like God's revealed to me like that. This is right here is going to stop generational curses.
Well, for a long time though, and I'm a firm believer that God showed me this years ago, Satan has done everything he could do to destroy the home. And it started in the 40s or 50s with adultery, and then it's moved to drugs, it's moved to alcohol, it's moved to homosexuality, it's moved to transgender, it's moved to whatever, and may get a strike for all this, but I don't care because it's the truth. Anything he can do to destroy the home. Well, people stopped getting divorced. Well, they were getting divorced, but they stayed married even though there was adultery. They stayed together through the drugs. They stayed together through the alcohol. Then you get into homosexuality. Well, now they can't reproduce and procreate. Well, they start adopting kids. So let's change their identity. Let's screw them up. Let's get them all out of sorts and out of whack. Anything they can do to destroy that home, because that's the way God designed it. Yeah. He designed it that way with Adam and Eve. Be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth, which poses a question. What does replenish mean? Was anything here before us? I don't know, but that's a topic for another day. But anything he can do to destroy that, he's tried to do. And now there's a quickening, I feel like Joey said, an awakening that you got men that grew up out of broken homes. Chris is the only one here whose parents were still together, and his mom died when he was in his late teens, So it's one of those things where we're making a conscious effort and a conscious choice to say, no, I'm keeping my family together. But how do I do that? Yeah. So in order to keep young men doing that, not only do we need to teach them how to be men, but we got to teach them how to treat their wives. We got to teach them how to treat their children. We got to teach them how to treat their finances. I mean, there's so many
the
areas
desire
of expertise.
Is not enough.
Yeah.
They need the knowledge that goes along with that desire. Right. So, yeah. Well, man, I'm excited to hear about the direction you guys are going.
We're believing God to do some big things here, man, to see some, and here's the thing, we're going through this ourselves. Right. I mean, I can't speak for Chris and Alicia, but I've been a witness to his marriage. I've been a witness to mine and vice versa. We haven't done it right. Luckily, we've got women that are willing to stand behind us, or by all means, we'd probably be divorced too, But that's a word I've never heard my wife say. But there's been plenty of times I thought, we're not going to make it, But somehow, by the grace of God, I can't tell you how many times I've had the thought of how far could I get before anybody even know I'm gone, And again, I understand that thought. I don't understand acting on it, because even in those thoughts, it's like, nope, my kids and my wife, they need me regardless, And we get caught up in ministry of wanting to fix everybody else and minister to everybody else, so we don't minister to our home, and it's got to start here. Yeah. I can't minister to anybody if I'm not ministering to my wife and kids, and it's awkward. It's weird. It's very odd to sit down and read scripture to my kids. It's very odd to lay hands on them and pray for them. Keegan was going through an issue here recently. Really, what I should have done was lay hands on him and pray for him. I did pray for him, but I should have laid hands on him and prayed for him. Not that I believe that there's anything any more powerful in that prayer other than it gives him confidence to know that Dad is praying for me, instead of thinking, well, I hope Dad's praying for me. Does that make sense? Yeah. And give them something stable to hold on to, because guess what? He's 20 years old. He's got a girl. They're probably going to get married. He needs to know how to be the man of his house. Mm-hmm. And the flip side of that is my daughters need to know what to expect out of a husband, and not settle for some Joe Blow who ain't gonna change, and I know that sounds horrible because we're trying to make men, but let's be honest, I want my daughters to know what a man is. Mm-hmm. I want them to know that, number one, it's probably going to take two incomes, but it's not all just on you. It's on both of y'all. Vice versa, it's not on you just to clean the house. He needs to help. I mean, there's so many aspects, I guess is what I'm saying, that we think, well, that's a woman's job or that's a man's job. No, ultimately it's the man's job, because when God come to Adam in the garden, he didn't say, hey, Adam, Eve, where are you? He said, Adam, where are you? Mm-hmm. And the responsibility was on Adam. What did he do? He shucked it. Well, the woman gave me this.
Can we trade taking the garbage out for something though?
Right. So, I got.
Is there like a?
I got two boys that take the trash out, and I still get yelled at about it. It's like,
I wish I could get mine motivated to take the garbage out.
Right, cut the grass. Well, man, we've held you up long enough. Last question, you touched on it, so it confirmed my question. What do you think Bigfoot is?
Dude, I just can't. If Bigfoot was real, why isn't he stuffed on some redneck's wall?
If he ever comes out on me, I'm smoking him.
I'm
calling
and then you're gonna be like, oh, never mind, that was John. He was just dressed up in a.
So I'm a woo guy. I do think that Sasquatch are real, but I do not think they're real in the aspect of what we think Sasquatch. I think it's some sort of interdimensional, demonic Nephilim. What that's a whole nother podcast. But anyway, that's just something I ask everybody. What do you think, Big?
Yeah.
You believe in aliens?
No.
Yeah. See, again, I don't believe in aliens, but I do believe there's something spiritual. I believe that is an easy way to explain away. If there is a rapture, I do believe Christ is coming again. I don't know if he's coming in the way that we've been taught our whole life. But if there is a rapture, I do believe that's an easy way for them to explain it away. Well, the aliens took them, and people will believe that, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Well, it's just a great deception.
Yeah.
Huge deception going on. So,
yeah. Why is it so with aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know we're whatever, but why they're always the smarter ones,
right?
Like, I mean, as if like aliens are so much more advanced than humans. We can't get to them, but they can all fly 10 gajillion light years to get to us, and somehow they have a saucer that flies around the sky, moving in all directions. But
it's crazy.
We can't seem to. Like, I don't know.
So I guess my next question is, why is it so easy to believe in that, but it's not to believe that Christ died and rose again?
Or that he created the universe.
No, I don't believe in God, really, but you believe that we're the most technologically advanced beings on this planet, and you're believing beings from light years away are coming here? Come on, man.
Well,
but you can't believe in God?
What's the old saying? The bigger the lie, the more people will believe it.
There you go.
Right. That's why I cannot wait to get the JFK files.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. Yeah. So it's not going to tell us anything.
No.
But if you believe Lee Harvey Oswald stood on that in that book depository,
dude, hope it's not so redacted that you really don't get anything out of it.
It will be. Yeah. We were in Dallas this summer and for work, and as we're driving down the road taking Ubers or whatever, if I heard it once. This is where JFK was shot. And I started to say, allegedly. And everybody's like, what? And I'm like, come on, man. You don't go down the rabbit hole. I'll take you down it. No. I mean, they're proud of that. They are proud that that's where JFK was shot.
Well, they'll go out there and take pictures on the X as if like that's something like you do know somebody's head was blown off right here, right? This wasn't like the sign. I mean, this isn't like
stop traffic.
I was watching a documentary about it, and one of the doctors supposedly that was trying to take care of JFK when he come into the hospital said that he was actually shot twice by two different guns, but that was never on the report, because it was two different entry and exit spots. It wasn't just one. And he was like, "The caliper is different, everything." Like
government offed him, man. Anyway,
well, so I watched the documentary. I don't know, man, it's probably 6 months ago, whatever. And that documentary said there was actually a Secret Service agent who switched places with JFK, in that it really wasn't JFK who got shot, but it was a Secret Service agent. And JFK got whisked off to wherever he's at. And I'm like, him and Elvis are hanging out together.
Marilyn Monroe, Biggie, Tupac, they're all Michael Jackson. They're all on an island somewhere. Yeah, they're all on the moon.
Well, if Tupac's on the island, welcome him back.
Yeah, we need Tupac back.
Dude's a storyteller.
Man. Yeah, we need Tupac back for sure. Well, all right, guys. I guess that's it, man. We're going to end right here, but we appreciate you coming on, Ralph.
Man, I had a great time.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it.
Appreciate you, buddy.
If you got any social medias or anything you want to shout out?
Nah, I'm boring.
Yeah, so, well, if you want to talk to Ralph, you want to reach out to Ralph, you need help at the Foundry, anything like that, let us know. We can get you in contact with him. It's a great place. We had Marcus's brother and my cousin went through it, and it did wonders for him. So we're believers in the Foundry as well. If you are struggling in any kind of way, there's help.
Foundry.com.
Foundry.com.
Go to Foundry.com, FoundryMinistries.com, and it's got everything on there on how to get help any way that we can help you.
The main thing is don't give up. Don't quit just because you feel like you're not getting the answers you need. Don't quit too soon. Just keep pushing. So with that being said, guys, if you got a show idea or you want to be on the show, shoot us an email amongtheashes@yahoo.com, or you can direct message us TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all searchable Among the Ashes Podcast. If you haven't done so yet, hit the like button, leave us a comment. We want to hear from you. Subscribe, really would help us out. And wherever you find podcasts, Among the Ashes Podcast, follow, download an episode from whenever you can. Watch us. Probably would be better to not watch us and just hear us. But yeah, that being said, guys, we love you. Jesus loves you. Romans 8:31. If God be for you, who can be against you? Keep your heads up, and we'll see you next time.